I have to believe, for whatever reasons, that these people were able to rationalize that what they were doing, if there is any truth in what we're saying, they have to be able to rationalize to themselves that what they're doing is for an honest purpose.
It was the height of the golden age of Hollywood. The glamour, the drama, the stars, larger than life. But what if behind those twinkling smiles, there lurked a darker truth? A truth so sinister, so utterly shocking, it could make even the most seasoned film buffs rethink everything they thought they knew about the glittering world of Tinseltown. What if the most revered actors were not only playing villains on screen, but living them off-screen as well? And what if one of Hollywood's biggest legends, Burt Lancaster, was about to blow the lid off the whole thing? Let's dive in. Hollywood's most evil. A dark underbelly exposed. Now, we all know the stories. Classic film stars like Cary Grant, Clark Gable, and Katharine Hepburn have their names etched into history. They're the icons we see in every movie marathon and the faces we associate with the pinnacle of cinematic achievement. But here's the kicker. What if these stars weren't as squeaky clean as we imagine? What if the very people we idolized on screen were hiding the kind of personalities that would make your skin crawl? Enter Burt Lancaster. An icon himself, Lancaster wasn't just a movie star. He was a real man with opinions, some of them blistering. While the public adored him, Lancaster wasn't afraid to call out the hypocrisy of the people who dominated the industry. He knew their secrets, and he wasn't shy about revealing them. In a shocking twist, Lancaster opened up about the darker side of Hollywood's elite, a side not even the most rabid fan could have imagined. And let's be clear, we're not talking about petty drama. We're talking about genuine malice. The kind of malice that went beyond mere egos and power plays. These were actors who, in some cases, made their darker roles in film seem like a walk in the park. Lancaster, who had first-hand experience with some of Hollywood's biggest names, was ready to expose them for what they really were: egotistical, manipulative, and, let's be real, downright evil. The cold, ruthless Bette Davis. Of all the stars that Lancaster cast a side-eye toward, Bette Davis stood out. She was a force of nature on screen, but behind the camera? Well, Lancaster didn't hold back. He openly criticized her for being a master manipulator. Picture this. Bette Davis, the queen of drama, with a reputation for playing intense, complex women, was a far cry from her on-screen personas when the cameras stopped rolling. Lancaster didn't mince words when describing her. He spoke about Davis's obsession with control, how she would manipulate her co-stars and even the directors. One thing about Davis, Lancaster pointed out, was that she had a knack for making people feel like they owed her something, even if she had no actual claim over them. A master of psychological warfare, Davis was known for playing head games and pulling strings to keep the spotlight on her, no matter the cost. There's a famous incident where Davis allegedly sabotaged a fellow actress's performance just to steal a scene for herself. It's as sinister as it sounds. And let's not forget about her infamous clashes with co-stars like Joan Crawford. But hey, let's be real, there's a reason they called their rivalry the feud, and not just a friendly disagreement. Davis wasn't playing nice, she was playing for keeps. The charismatic but venomous Errol Flynn. Next up on Lancaster's hit list was Errol Flynn. Known for his debonair charm and swashbuckling roles, Flynn was the epitome of the dashing hero. On screen, he was the man every woman wanted to be with, and every man wanted to be. But off-screen, he was a different beast entirely. Flynn's personal life was rife with scandal, and Lancaster didn't hesitate to shine a light on it. Known for his excesses, Flynn was the kind of guy who believed that the rules didn't apply to him, especially when it came to women. He was infamous for his womanizing ways, but it wasn't just the women that got hurt. Flynn's indulgent lifestyle also made him a deeply unreliable colleague, constantly pushing boundaries and disrespecting those who stood in his way. Lancaster called out Flynn for his manipulative behavior, noting how the actor would use his charm to get whatever he wanted, be it from women, producers, or fellow actors. There was something particularly unsettling about Flynn's confidence, though. He believed that Hollywood owed him everything, and he demanded it, one way or another. Flynn's most infamous incident was his trial for statutory rape. While he was acquitted, many believed his charm and influence were what saved him. And Lancaster? He wasn't fooled. To him, Flynn's swashbuckling roles were just a facade for a man who lived in a toxic fog of entitlement and self-destruction. The unhinged tyranny of John Wayne. Ah, the Duke. The man whose face was synonymous with cowboy heroism. John Wayne, America's rugged, no-nonsense favorite. But behind that wholesome American smile, there was a man who was, in Lancaster's eyes, a ticking time bomb of toxic masculinity. Wayne was a product of his time, but Lancaster didn't cut him any slack. Known for his outspoken political views and harsh attitudes toward people of different races and backgrounds, Wayne often used his fame to push his agenda. He had a reputation for being a bully, and not just on screen. He would intimidate people with his power, and anyone who disagreed with him was quickly silenced or ignored. Lancaster was one of the few who dared to challenge Wayne's image. He openly criticized the actor for his narrow-mindedness and how he used his celebrity status to manipulate people into seeing things his way. To Lancaster, Wayne was the embodiment of everything that was wrong with Hollywood's old guard. An egotistical, arrogant, and unpleasant man who thought he could bulldoze his way through life, and no one dared stand in his path. But the public, of course, adored him. Wayne's movies, especially his westerns, made him a hero to millions. But Lancaster, who had worked with him, was less enchanted. He saw Wayne for what he truly was. A man who wore the mask of masculinity while hiding a deep well of insecurities beneath. And Lancaster wasn't afraid to call out the myth. The darkest mind, Orson Welles. Then there's the master of them all, Orson Welles. Welles was a genius, no doubt about it. The man who gave us Citizen Kane, a film still considered one of the greatest ever made. But for all his brilliance, Welles was a man deeply entrenched in his own darkness. Lancaster spoke about Welles's ability to manipulate those around him. To him, Welles wasn't just a brilliant director. He was a cold, calculating individual who used his genius to bend people to his will. He was an artist, sure, but also a tyrant who demanded control over every aspect of his productions, sometimes at the expense of the people who worked for him. There's a famous story about Welles locking himself in his office for days, only to emerge with a new vision that completely overhauled his entire film. He was obsessive, and at times, it bordered on madness. To Lancaster, Welles's genius came at a cost, and that cost was the people around him. Welles also had a penchant for playing the villain. In fact, many of the most memorable characters he portrayed were cunning, manipulative, and deeply flawed, traits that some believed were a reflection of his own personality. Lancaster didn't see the genius in Welles's work the way the public did. To him, Welles was one of the ultimate examples of Hollywood's dark underbelly, a man whose brilliance was overshadowed by his twisted sense of self-importance. The curtain falls. Lancaster's lasting words. So, what's the takeaway from Lancaster's shocking revelations? The truth about Hollywood's golden age is far from the glittering fantasy it's made out to be. These were not just actors. They were men and women with egos so large they overshadowed their on-screen personas. Behind the glamour, there was darkness, there was manipulation, and there was betrayal. Burt Lancaster gave us a rare glimpse into the ugly side of Hollywood, the side where power, influence, and self-interest ruled. These stars weren't just acting out their roles on screen, they were living them in real life. And for every fan who revered them, there was a cast of victims left in their wake. So the next time you watch a classic movie, remember this. The villain wasn't always just the one in the black hat. Sometimes, they were the ones you least expected. The ones with the golden reputations and the dangerous hearts. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Stay tuned for more shocking stories coming your way. Until next time, keep the mystery alive.